Hello and welcome to GSF Podcast, sponsored by the Gary Sinise Foundation's Education and Outreach Initiative, aiming to educate the public on the importance of serving America's veterans, first responders, and their families.
Welcome to the Gary Sinise Foundation Podcast. I'm your host, Cristin and today I'm excited to welcome retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General Patty Horoho to the show. General Horoho made history as the first woman and first nurse to serve as the U.S. Army Surgeon General. She had a remarkable career serving 33 years in the U.S. Army and is known for her leadership during the 9/11 attacks at the Pentagon and her transformative impact on military healthcare. She also serves on the board of directors of the Gary Sinise Foundation and recently launched her own nonprofit that honors and supports the women who wear the cloth of this nation. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so glad for you to be here. Yes, I'm so glad. Okay, so I just want to kick off into your trailblazing past. So you're the first female and first nurse or non-physician Surgeon General of the United States Army.
That's it. It was very, very humbling. Was selected to lead Army medicine, but it was also the first time that the United States ever selected a female to lead across Army, Navy, Air Force.
Across all the forces?
All the Department of Defense had never had a female serving in the Surgeon General position. And the reason why I'm bringing that out is it was about a year into my position where good friends of mine, you become really close to international Surgeon Generals. And so the Israeli and the French Surgeon General said, would you like to know what happened when you were named Surgeon General? I said, I would love to. And they said it was the shot that was heard around the world. They said,
that gives me chills.
Countries came together and called each other. And it wasn't because you were the first nurse. It was because the United States of America selected a female. And that was the discussion. Which was not at all what I would have thought.
I love that. And so I have to ask, when you are the first, you're essentially, it's kind of like it is a shot across the bow, you know, it's a little against the grain or what's kind of been institutionalized. So was it more challenging? Was it the first woman that created the most challenges, or was it maybe the first nurse?
That's a great question.
Because you'd kind of wonder.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I thought it would be being the first nurse, being a non-physician.
Right.
And it was actually being the first female.
Really?
And because you just don't think about it. You're a female and you grew up a female.
Right.
So you don't think about that you talk differently, you process information differently. And so what is normal to you feels very different to those that are receiving it. Mm-hmm. And I had actually, the UK called me when I was deployed to Afghanistan. It's after it had been announced. And they said, so how does it feel to know the whole world's going to watch you to see if you succeed or fail? And I remember holding the pressure and thinking, okay, that's not really a congratulatory call.
Like, what? Okay.
But what it said to me is it's not just a job. We really are representing all females that are out there, and it's not important to be the first. To me, it was important not to be the last, and that's what was key.
I love to see that, and it's so that's one of the things that I noticed when I was looking at the list of all of the Surgeon Generals of the United States Army, and you're going down and there's just my fingers scrolling, and it's just, a lot of the same photos in a way. And then boom, there's your photo and you're just smiled, beaming, and the first female. And then what I love to see is that following you, there's been two other women who have served, to include the current one.
I love
How does that feel?
You know what? To me, that's a sign of success. And it's never an individual success. It's the success of the entire organization.
Yeah.
And not only did we have 2 female Surgeon Generals follow me, the Air Force had a Surgeon General, the Defense Health Agency put in a female, and so it really has set the pathway of, showing that it doesn't matter whether you're male or female. It's really, is it the right leader for the right time? And we all stand, as we know, right, on the giants and the shoulders of those in the past.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like nurses are the unsung heroes, and that doctors often get, all the glory, and not to take away from them at all, but nurses are really on the front lines. You all are there in people's darkest moments.
I have loved being a nurse. I love that you get to take care of the whole person. You connect with them mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And it's a profession that it's really the team concept. So it takes all of us, right, to wrap our arms around our patients and their families to really help them to heal.
Yeah, that's so you. That's how you do your core. Team of team, like just
I believe
leading and it's everybody. Okay, so I want to go to your history. And so you were born in Fayetteville, right, North Carolina, which is home to Fort Bragg, the 82nd Airborne, and I believe the largest Army base in terms of population. And so did you always want to be in the military?
It's so funny. I grew up, born and raised Fayetteville, born at Fort Bragg, Womack Army Hospital. Both of my kids were also born there years later.
Love it.
So that was really exciting. But my dad fought World War II, Korean, Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
And I just grew up in that military community, and I watched every Thursday he'd go to the Over the Hill gang and they'd have breakfast. And it was with his veteran friends, and they just supported each other. And nobody in my family ever said, you should think of being in the military. Nobody. I think I shocked them all when I said, I'm going in. It was my senior year at UNC Chapel Hill, and I was sitting in the back of, I can remember it, in the nutrition class, and I thought, I think I'm going to join the Army. And I called a recruiter.
Just like that? Just
like that, called a recruiter, and he met me on the corner of Franklin Street, right across from Spanky's, and interviewed me, and that was it. I called my family, I said, hey, I'm going to join the Army. I think everybody was shocked. Literally.
Okay, so why the Army then?
I think
just is it
that's in my DNA.
In your heart,
that's in my DNA because of who I grew up with.
Yeah, no, I know for me too. I think the military was definitely something that they kind of knew. I think my parents knew for a very long time. My dad knew Air Force is going to be it, and that's going to happen, and then the stars aligned, and it went a little different direction.
I love it.
But it was kind of. Yeah, essentially one of those, I'm just going to do this, and that's the way it's going to be. So I love that. So you served 33 years in the U.S. Army. So I have to ask you, what advice would you give to a young woman who's interested in joining the military?
Yeah, I think everyone should serve in some capacity. It doesn't have to be active duty military, but serving just changes who you are. And it makes you appreciate things. And so I think what I would tell young women is it's unlimited, the leadership opportunities. You will leave the service a totally different person, and you will have learned to appreciate the values that are inherent in being an American.
Yeah.
I really only came in for 3 years. That's all I was going to do.
Really?
And I had no intention of staying longer than my initial obligation. And 33 years later, and I stayed because I loved the leadership opportunities. I loved the people I got to serve with. I loved the type of work. I loved that there were all sorts of opportunities that I would have never had that experience as a nurse to be able to do, but I got to do both, both clinical care and leadership at the exact same time.
Oh my goodness.
I loved it.
It was definitely a give and take, I guess you could say, relationship. Like you give to it, but you also receive a lot too.
Way more than I gave.
Oh,
way more.
I love that. So earlier on in your career, you were on the front lines following the Pope Air Force Base tragedy of 1994. And so can you explain and share a little bit about like what happened that day?
Yeah. You know, I'll have to back it up just a little bit if I
please.
could, because prior to going to Fort Bragg, the Army had sent me to the University of Pittsburgh, and I got my master's in trauma nursing, and this will show my age. But I had 60 type pages in my first research study, and it was going to be critical incident stress debriefing, and I couldn't get enough patients. So then I had to start a new research study and 60 more type pages.
Oh my gosh.
And I couldn't get enough burn patients for it because there was an issue that happened in one of the hospitals. So I was going to my third, and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm never going to graduate. So they let me do a comparison research study on 2 different types of burn dressing. The reason why I say that is when I went to Fort Bragg, I looked at the ER and I thought, everybody looks and says, what can you do as a leader? And I thought, well, let's get prepared for mass casualties. So we planned this entire scenario with Cape Valley Hospital, the Air Force, all of our clinical at Womack, and it was planes crashing, multi-trauma coming in. And so we were prepared for it to occur, and it wasn't supposed to occur till April. And on
But you'd been training for it.
We've been training for it.
Out.
And we had practice and everything with EMS, fire, and that. And on the 23rd of March, Phil Layton ran into the ER and said, at that time I was a young major, and he said, Major Horoho, he said, there's patients coming in. There was a mass casualty at Green Ramp. And I said, oh, is this our exercise? He said, no, ma'am, it's real. In 15 minutes, literally by 14:15, we had 100 plus patients came to our ER. They were stacked on top of each other in deuce and halves. Their clothes were burnt off. We had people coming with motorcycles and scoop and run, which saved lives, and they had the injured on the side. We had 26 patients on ventilators, and we had over 80 plus that were outside of the ER that we did a makeshift ER. It was the largest peacetime disaster in the history of our nation.
Can you share if
What
you don't
occurred?
Mind? Yeah, what happened?
Yeah, it's there were 500 paratroopers on the ground getting ready to jump, and there was a C-141 Starlifter that was on the ground, and then in the sky they were doing training exercises. So there was an F-16 and a C-130, and the F-16 actually, the pilots ejected. They crashed into the C-130, clipped it, and then that careened into the ground.
Oh, no.
And 50,000 gallons of jet fuel ignited. There were also weapon systems that went off, so there were bullets that were flying. There was a fireball. And I have never, since the day that this occurred, have ever talked about this without honoring Sergeant Daniel Price, and so I have to do that now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sergeant Daniel Price was an African-American soldier, and he saw this one soldier that he didn't know, Specialist Winfield, who was a Caucasian female. He picked her up, threw her on the ground, jumped on top of her, and then he whispered in her ear, and he said, I want you to run now. And she ran. And when she looked back, he had taken the brunt of the fireball and gave his life. And the reason why I share that story every single time that I talk about the Green Ramp disaster is that's the heart of the American soldier. Regardless of your race, your creed, your religion, we do what we need to do to take care of the American soldier. Yeah. And I want to honor him today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He lives on.
He does.
Yeah. His spirit and his...
lives on through so many. And it and to be perfectly honest, it's everyone who raises their right hand from all services is willing to give their life to protect who's on the right and left of them.
That's what he represents.
Absolutely.
Forever. Yeah. Let's flash forward 7 years. So 7 years, you're now in the Pentagon when American Airlines Flight 77 hits the building. And so can you walk us through that day?
Yeah, that's, it's like everything, so much is imprinted on your heart, and you can see it so clearly. I was actually took the transit train in, and I was reading the book, God is My CEO, because I felt like I just needed to be grounded. And I remember walking in, and it was such a beautiful day. I mean, it was the same blue sky, to be honest, as it was on the Green Ramp disaster. Same blue sky, beautiful, beautiful day. And I went into my office, and I picked up a legal document, and I was going to walk down the hallway to get it signed. And I heard this voice, just like as clear as you and I talking, that said, don't go down that way. And I went, okay. And I turned the other way and went across the hallway to where Holly Russell and Kathy Abel were sitting, and they were watching TV. I said, what are you doing? And they said, we're watching TV. And they said, the Twin Tower just got attacked. And they told me I said this, because I don't remember it. They said, you looked at us and said, there's going to be a series of attacks across the United States, and we're next. And I literally walked out of the office and took one step into mine, and I could feel the whole building shake. And I thought, I knew that was it. And the reason why I want to say I knew that was it is, you'll think I'm strange, but I'll say it anyway.
I love it.
Because
No.
Is when I got to the Pentagon in August, in the center is a hot dog stand. And at that time, the rumor was they always thought Russia thought that was where we kept our nukes. And so
and it's a hot dog stand.
It's a hot dog stand. But it's the courtyard where people take shortcuts to go, to get into different areas of the Pentagon. And I walked out there, and it was like everything slowed down, and I could watch the leaves on this one tree just kind of shimmer. And I heard a voice literally say, you're going to be attacked while you're here, and you need to be prepared. And I just went, okay. And I didn't think anything more of it, and that was in August. And then fast forward to the day of 9/11, when we got hit, I thought, this is it.
Yeah.
It was like unbelievable calmness that came. And everybody started evacuating. And I remember I turned to Susie and said, I'm going to run to the attack site, because I knew that's trauma. I knew that's where we'd have our victims or injured. And I said, but let my family know I'm okay, and accountability. Because I figured they'd take accountability at site. And when I ran to the front of the Pentagon, there was a gaping hole, and there was debris, a plane all over. And I'll never forget Master Sergeant Sepulveda, who I didn't know was actually a medic standing outside and had watched the plane go right into the attack site.
What is it that makes you run to something like that? I mean, most people your natural instinct is to run away, but you are running to it. And I mean, you helped save 75 victims. Like, what is that?
I think it's inherent in all of us, to be perfectly honest. I think it's our training, it's our readiness, it's our character and action. And I think you just instinctively know where you need to be, and you go to where that is. And, people were incredible on that day. Specialist Cahill was a young medic, a reserve, who was on vacation at home, PTO, or leave. And for some reason, he said he carried his aid bag with him, and he had it with him on vacation. And when he saw the fireball, he ran 2 miles with the medic bag. He was that was our first medical supplies at the site. Had he not done that, lives would have been negatively impacted. And then I can't even tell you the number of stories. And General Webster, Fuzzy Webster, who was a 1-star at the time, and I didn't know him, came up and he said, what do you need? And I just looked at, I didn't look at his rank, and I just looked at him, I said, I need your belt and I need it now. He took his belt off, and we used that as a tourniquet. I mean, people, and he ran back in the building to save people. It just, you saw the best of Americans that day. You saw the worst from our enemy.
Absolutely.
But you saw the best. And I knew at that moment we were going to be okay, that our enemy underestimated us.
You knew it then?
I knew it at that moment.
Do you think that your experience 7 years earlier at Pope Air Force Base, in a way, help prepare you for this then 7 years later?
I do. I think it's all connected. And so when I talked about the University of Pittsburgh, those two challenges actually gave me the skill set that I needed at Fort Bragg.
I mean, that's...
And then at Fort Bragg, I used those skills when we deployed to Haiti when it was going to be a forced invasion. And everything I learned at Haiti with logistics and supplies is everything that I was able to draw upon on 9/11.
Yeah.
And I've learned that it's actually changed how I look at challenges in life. And I look at it as spiraling upward, that I always pray and say, God, help me to understand what I need to learn during the dark times.
Yeah.
Because I know we're going through something for a reason, and it will always help you in the future. I've found it always does.
So challenges are actually opportunities.
I think they're huge opportunities. And I just think life is a series of learning experiences. And I think how you embrace them, your mindset, they'll never go to waste, and they always make you better.
I love that. It's growth. It seems very divine in a way.
I strongly feel like it is.
Yeah. So, okay, September 14th, 2002, you were recognized as a nurse hero by the American Red Cross for your actions during September 11th attacks. And I love the way that they described it. They say that she raced from her desk, and I can just see that. I can visually see that, to provide first aid. How did that feel to be recognized? One, humbling, and it's kind of hard to put into words. Meeting President Bush was, he's so gracious and so authentic. And meeting the other nurses. What I would say is there were so many people that should have been honored that day. And I felt like that moment was more recognition of all of them and all the effort. And I was just representing all of them. And it wasn't something I did that was unique. I think every nurse would do that. Every clinician would respond that way, and they did. And non-clinicians. It was amazing the number of people who leaned in, helped with litter bearing, and just helping to evacuate people. Sergeant Major Tilley, Sergeant Major of the Army, was out there, helping in transporting. And so that recognition, I think, was a recognition for everyone that day. Okay, so we're going to talk about recognition, that it was another moment, another trailblazing moment. So 6 years after 9/11, you were appointed the commander of Walter Reed Army Medical Center, becoming the first woman and first non-physician. Is trailblazing in your blood? I love it. I'm here for it.
I think it's trusting God's journey. It never goes the way I thought it would.
Okay, so what is
truly,
it? Yeah.
So I have to tell you a funny thing on this, because I had someone call me after I got appointed the commander of Walter Reed. And he said, ma'am, I just want you to know I follow your career. And I thought, okay, this is a little odd. And
Not really.
And I said, you do? And he said, yes. He said, I realized everywhere you go, there's a disaster. And he said, so I try not to get assigned with you. Honest to goodness, you can't make it up.
These phone calls that people are making to you.
So it's interesting because we were supposed to be going to Longstall Regional Medical Center. And my entire career, I never got assigned to Europe. And when I was a captain, I got told, if you don't go to Europe, you're never going to make major. And I said, I'd love to go to Europe. When I made major, they said, great career. If you don't go to Europe, you're never going to make lieutenant colonel. And then I made lieutenant colonel, never got Europe. So then I was coming out of the War College, and they said, you're going to be going to Europe. And so I went home and told the kids, we're going to Europe this time. And then I got assigned to the Pentagon. And so then I got selected for colonel, and I was handed my application in to compete. And it was the year that all of the European commands were open. And I didn't come out.
So it's going to happen.
Well, no, I didn't come out on the list. And I thought, okay, I'm just not competitive. And Colonel Eileen Malone said, your name didn't go before. I said, oh, yes, it did. I handed them my packet, and she said, there's no way, you asked for the product of the boards. And so I did ask for the product of the boards, and my packet slipped between, you can't even make it up, honest to goodness, slipped between two trays, and it never went before the board. And so then when I did compete command the next time, there were no European commands for level 1. So level 2, I finally got Europe. I finally got Landstuhl, and then my command at the last minute got changed because of everything that happened at Walter Reed. And so I have never in my life been assigned to Europe, and that's kind of our family joke with that. But Walter Reed assignment had to have been one of the most humbling assignments I could have ever had. And it was in the midst of 42 investigations, a presidential commission, the Dulce Shalala Commission, 4 unannounced joint commissions that came and monitored, open to the public, and we had injured coming in 36 hours from the battlefield, from going the battlefield to Landstuhl to us 3 to 4 times a week. And in the midst of all that, the team at Walter Reed changed the way care was provided to our wounded, ill, and injured, changed how rehabilitation medicine is provided, changed our customer service. We went from the worst in all of DOD to winning the best customer service in a year in the midst of all of that. And what it showed me is people just want a vision. They want people to lead them, and they want to know there's a focus on what's right, which is serving those that we have the privilege to serve.
Like integrity.
In everything we do, and transparency. I think the other thing I learned is the importance of transparency, the importance of hearing the voice of our patients and our staff, and really hearing that constructive feedback, and then finding out the source of why, and then fixing it quickly. And people will innovate at the speed of the problem if you support them with the right resources and the opportunity to do it. It was that team was amazing on what they did, and but it was one of the hardest.
I was going to ask.
It was one of the toughest jobs I think I've ever felt like I was in.
Really?
It really was. It was pretty intense for a long time.
It's like they thought, well, who are going to put in there? Why not you? Just get in there. To go from that kind of darkness, it seems like, to such a success. What was the most significant challenge?
Yeah, I think the most significant challenge was there were so many things to fix, both external, internal, our brand, the morale, just all of it in the midst of the complexity of providing care. And so I think the biggest challenge was, do we have the right leaders in the right positions? And we changed out some leaders. And then how do we as a team function as a high-performing team quickly, and then be very authentic in the feedback we gave each other to hold each other accountable.
Okay.
I think that team was so amazing to serve with. And I knew we were successful when we started hearing from our patients and our families, I don't know what you're doing, but it feels different. And that was our one metric. It's interesting. We had a lot of metrics. And I remember General Waitman had said, how does this happen when we're meeting all of our metrics, but the train goes over the cliff? And so we literally said, the one thing we're going to measure is, does this feel different in a positive way? And when we started hearing that, I knew we had turned things around, and we just kept going.
It sounds like you focused in on the people.
It's all about the people.
It wasn't about like the processes and procedures, or like, the back end. It was about the people.
It was focusing on the people. It was allowing people's voice to be heard. People are hurting when they're in a hospital. They're not there because they feel well. We receive them at their most vulnerable moments. Their families' lives are disrupted in a way that was disrupting for 3 years sometimes. They lived there and they took care of their loved one. And so you had to feel their pain. You had to understand their pain. and then you had to help heal them
Yeah.
and give all of that support. And I think the other thing that I learned is you have to take calculated risk, and you have to be okay if what you are doing, someone looks and says, Patty, thank you very much, your time in service is over. I had to take the risks that I knew was the right thing to do, and it can never be about you. It has to be, you're in that position to do the best good that you can.
Oh, wow.
And so it changed my whole view of risk-taking in leadership.
I think that there's no doubt that people then saw like this fearlessness in you, that you're willing to take that risk for the common good.
I think everybody was, though. It's a shared risk. It's never about one person, but it is about the team feeling like you've got their back, that you're going to give them clarity of vision, clarity around the mission, and then you're gonna support them in what they do.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to someone new to a leadership position?
Yeah, I would. I probably would give the advice that your voice is important to be heard. Just assume you belong and never wait to be invited to the table. Just assume you belong.
Says the Trailblazer.
No, you know,
I love it.
I'll tell you how I learned that early on.
Yeah, how did you?
There was I don't remember his name, but I can always see his face. I was a brand new second lieutenant, and you had to go to the supply room to get your supplies. And so I went down there, and there was a sergeant sitting at the desk, and I said, I need to go behind there to get my supplies. And he said, no. I said, pardon? And he said, no, you can't. And I went, but I need the supplies. He said, you can't go. And I thought, okay. And I walked away, and I thought, this is so wrong.
Yeah.
And so the next day, I thought, okay, I'm going to do this differently. And I walked up to him, and I said, good morning. He said, good morning. I said, I'm going back there. And I just walked back, got my supplies. He said, have a good day, ma'am. I said, thank you. And what I realized, whether he was doing this intentionally or not, I chose to give him the good benefit of the doubt, is I think he was telling me, don't give away your permission and your authority when you already have it. And I learned that early on, and I used that throughout my entire career. So I would share that with young leaders.
Yeah,
you don't ask permission for something you already have the authority to do.
I love that. It's like the fearlessness in a way. It's good. Okay, so I have to ask you, how did you meet Gary?
Oh, I love him. Who doesn't love Gary? Okay,
yeah, exactly.
Who doesn't love Gary? So at Walter Reed, you know, the morale was so low because nurses, physicians, therapists, everybody was working so hard for years to care for our wounded, ill, and injured. And then to feel like the nation felt like they had failed on that, the morale just really hit rock bottom. And then what I shared, all those investigations and the intensity and the work still needed to be there, and we needed to transform. The community came and wrapped its arms around Walter Reed. And Gary was one of those that came. And he came to Walter Reed. They were serving meals. And this is a team that we were working around the clocks, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And just his smile, his enthusiasm, his demeanor, and people felt cared for. Yeah. It was that moment of, a meal is an act of friendship, right? It's sharing, it's bonding. It was those moments of bonding that occurred with our clinical staff, and we started a bond. And then
not surprised.
And then he did a concert. So one of our big things was while we were transforming, we also looked at how we took care of our staff, and we actually put in a no-cost government contract where people brought their acupressure, 15-minute massages in for free for the staff that was working. So we had that. We had, the meals, and then Gary put on a concert that just raised people's spirits. And Lieutenant Dan became part of our team. I loved it.
Lieutenant Dan rocking out there.
That's it. He's nothing like it. And that bond, I'll be honest, the bond of him representing an injured soldier in Vietnam War was really tied to the thread that went through Walter Reed, because what I watched was when our Vietnam vets came in and started bonding with our current, wounded warriors, it was unspeakable bond. And they shared a camaraderie, but I saw healing in our Vietnam vets that our nation probably should have showed them that respect years ago, but we showed it at that moment. And so Lieutenant Dan, that was just like a little thread that was woven into the fabric of our country.
Yeah.
It was pretty powerful.
I love it. And Gary always says service is a great healer.
It's a tremendous healer.
Yeah.
When you are serving others, you don't have time to think of your worries, your challenges. It's a very outward lens.
Yeah.
And I think you benefit way more than you ever give. Ever.
Beautifully said. And so that brings me to, this podcast is in honor of Mac, Gary's son, who we lost in January of 2024. And Mac, initially, as he got deeper and deeper into this mission, it became very personal to him. In the beginning, it was really his dad's, passion, and he kind of saw it from afar. But then once he joined the team, and he started...
It was who he was.
It was who he was to his core, And so I have to ask you, what or why is this mission at the Gary Sinise Foundation so important to you?
One, I can't even do this without getting choked up. Mac is a beautiful spirit, and his spirit is his family spirit, and I think it lives on.
Absolutely.
And so why is this mission important? One, the foundation is so service-minded, and it's not just our wounded, our ill, our injured in the armed forces, but it's our first responders, it's our firefighters, right? It's our police officers, it's the EMS, and it really is a foundation that everybody that's here believes in it. It's who they are. They carry out the mission with the most care and compassion and inspiration, and they really live up to what I believe is our Army motto, which is never leaving a fallen comrade behind. The foundation never leaves the family. They never leave those that need care and support. And I've just never seen a team that is so impactful, that is so loving and so caring. And I don't know, I can't say enough about it. It's an amazing foundation.
Yeah.
And I always walk away feeling like I have, my heart's full whenever I'm with the team. And when I get to see and hear from those that the foundation serves, you're changing lives.
Yeah.
I mean, every single day. And the last thing I'd say is the responsiveness and the agility of this team is amazing. When the fires broke out in California, this team responded to it. When Asheville, North Carolina was devastated, this team was on the ground. When you talk about scalability, repeatability, and agility, and mission focus, and failure's not an option, I think you just described the foundation. Love it.
At the heart of us, I think, in the heart of Gary is much of what we've talked about with the heart of you is just the people.
It's all about the people.
It's all about the people.
Yeah.
And that's...
a shared mission.
Exactly.
It's the people and a shared mission.
Exactly.
And, Gary has the ability to connect with everybody. And
it's a superpower.
It is a superpower. And there is generations of goodwill that's occurring. Because when you all are doing things for the parent and the children are there, that's another generation that sees this. And, we will never have any idea of how many people our youth choose to serve because somehow they've been touched by this foundation.
Yeah, the ripple effect.
It's a huge ripple effect.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Ripple effect of goodwill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That spiral of good.
Yes, it's spiraling upwards.
Yes.
Through everything.
Yeah. So you talk about all the impact. You serve on the board of the Gary Sinise Foundation.
I'm so honored to serve on this board. It's, one, it's something that when I watched the movie years ago, never in my life did I think
Looking back, you're like,
looking back,
what?
never did I make that connection. No, serving on the board, and I've served on several boards, and it's always an honor to serve on a board for any foundation or any corporation. But what I would say about this board is it is so unified in the mission and how we support each other, and they're some of the most generous people with their time, their talent, their expertise, and their passion for who we get to serve. And I love serving on the board. I love the people I get to serve with, and our ability to kind of help partner with Donna as the CEO and Gary as the chairman to create this strategic pathway to make this foundation successful and enduring is humbling every time I get to be with it. So.
Your leadership is absolutely invaluable to all of us, and it's I like the word passion. I think with Gary, sometimes people think they question, like, is he really involved? Or like, how involved is he?
He's involved.
I say sometimes
blueprints, fingerprints are on everything.
Everything.
Yes.
I always say
it's the artist
that if
in
he
him.
could clone himself to do every single one of our jobs, he'd love it.
Yes, I think you're right. You know what? I think this fuels his soul.
It does.
I honestly do. And because he is so involved, and because I think his energy and his passion comes through, that's the ripple effect that it has then on all the staff. And so when everybody's out there and the board is out there, you can feel it tied back to him and why he started this.
Absolutely.
We were just in New Orleans together.
Yes.
And being able to recognize Rosie the Riveters. Oh my word. From 92 to 105 years old, amazing women that really created this pathway that we're all able to do what we do today because they stepped in when our nation needed them. And
absolutely.
There's just a beautiful connection.
Exactly. They paved the way for both of us.
All of us, yes.
It's just incredible.
They were humbling.
Yeah. So you're not, obviously you're no stranger to nonprofit work, and it's definitely not for the faint of heart.
Oh my goodness.
So
it's an understatement, isn't it?
What inspired you to start your own nonprofit?
My dad, who fought World War II, Korean, Vietnam, and had Parkinson's from Agent Orange exposure. He was a Special Forces officer in Vietnam. And then also lost his eyesight with macular degeneration. And so his last, probably 15 years or more, he was in a wheelchair. And when we'd go out, he'd always wear his baseball cap that had World War II, Korean, Vietnam on it. And he'd be kind of slumped over in it. And someone would come up and say, "Thank you for your service." And he would just sit up straight. And I remember watching the healing that occurred from that simple thank you. And my mother, they were married 70 years, just shy of 70 years before he passed away. And I remember thinking, females will never get that healing because most aren't going to wear a baseball cap. And I thought, how is it that I can help with that? Well, it took me 20 years. To be honest, God put it on my heart for 20 years. And then in 2020, I just thought, this is the year we're going to do it. And I reached out to Ann Hand, who's a world-renowned jeweler in Washington, D.C., an amazing woman. And her jewelry store was born out of the loss of her son. And that's how she healed, was making jewelry. And I thought, what a perfect...
personal for her.
It was very, very personal for her. So we partnered together. We created the Forget-Me-Not. And it's a flower. I actually have it on, and you do as well.
Yes.
To recognize your service as a veteran and a Marine Corps veteran. And but it's purple to recognize jointness, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, and Space Command. And the leaves are in a V for victory, valor, and veteran. And then in the center is a pearl for purity, emission, and femininity. And then you can see the small gold star that's around the pearl. And those are, that's respect for those that paid the ultimate sacrifice for our country and defending our freedom. And so I want this symbol to be internationally renowned. When someone sees it, just like they see the pink ribbon, they can look at this and say, did you serve? And you can say, yes, I did. And we can say, thank you for your service.
I love that. Can you share a little bit more about To Serve Together?
Yeah. So we created S2 Serve Together, and it's the number 2 and then servetogether.org. And the reason why we did the 2 is you never serve alone. You're always with someone, whether it's male, whether it's female, whoever it is, you're serving in partnership. And so created the organization because we want to do a couple things. One is to really get brand awareness and that this is a symbol to recognize women that are served. The second one is we want to be able to continue with the Women of Valor retreats that we started. So we partnered with Gary Sinise Foundation, Travis Mills, Boulder Crest, and to serve together. And we have post-traumatic growth Women of Valor retreats in Maine that really help someone in their healing journey post-service. The third is so that care coordination. We're working to connect digitally all of the nonprofits that are there so we can help people navigate. Because one nonprofit can't do it all. It's all of us coming together to serve those that have served this great nation and to really support the healing and honor those that have raised their right hand. And so we're trying to do those things together. And I really believe people should never underestimate the value of a thank you. I have pinned this little pin onto people, and they have broke down crying. And some have said, first time someone's ever thanked me for my service. We pinned it on a young woman when we were recognizing Disney employees, and she had lost her leg in Iraq, and she said, everyone thanks my husband and he's never served. She said, I've served and gave my leg for this country, and no one has ever thanked me for that. And she just had tears of gratitude. I had a woman who said that inside she feels completely empty. Outside she's very proficient in her profession. But the healing that came from saying thank you allowed those two pieces to connect. And she felt proud of her service. So the power of being able to have a symbol that people can see that can cause a connection, because when you see someone and you connect with someone, you can help with someone. And once you help with someone, you can hear their story. And then it's the power of healing.
I know when you presented me with the pin, it was emotional for me personally, because I too have noticed it's just kind of known, no one will know that I served unless I say it to them. And
you won't ever say it.
And I will never say it. Often Gary is the one who's usually egging me on, and saying it. But, and so to have this presented to me was something that just meant so much to me personally. And I'm so grateful for what you're doing to put it out there for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you. Our female veteran population is the fastest growing homelessness rate in our country. Higher incidence of PTSD, military sexual trauma. And I think we owe it to anyone who has served to thank them, to recognize them, to make them feel valued. Regardless, male or females, we should all be very grateful that people are willing to defend our democracy.
Absolutely. And it seems so fitting. It's, as you've explained your history, of course this would be it. Of course this is what you would do.
It's just, I think you get those passions that are placed on your heart. And when they never go away, you need to just act on them. And it took me a long while. But it was like crystal clarity in 2020. It was all of a sudden, I thought, it's the timing's right, and we need to do that. And I am so humbled with the partnership, and I really believe this is a passion that I have that I want to give back to those women that have served and those that will serve.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so you've been a trailblazer your whole life. So what's on the horizon?
If I looked in the rear view, I probably couldn't have told you that was going to be my path. So the horizon is probably unclear as well. I'm truly a journey person, and I just embrace it. I think one, the very first is next month. I'm going to be a grandmother for the very first time.
Which is shocking, but still
Both
so
of my
exciting.
kids, I shouldn't say it's my husband and I's, both of our kids are going to have little babies. So Carson, Michael, and then Isabella, Patricia are going to be born in April. So I want to be the best Nana that I can be. I also want to put a lot of time and energy into my foundation. I believe that we can change the way I think nonprofits work together and really work in that space to have a huge impact. And I also would like to take it international.
Love it.
And so I think there's tremendous opportunities in front of us. And then I'm one of those that when the need hits, it'll just be clear, and then we'll respond to it.
And you'll be directed that way.
I do believe God directs my steps, and there's so much ahead of me, and I can feel it. I'm working to be as healthy as I can be, so I can live as long as I can, and make every day count.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I cannot thank you enough. You are such an inspiration to so many, and especially me.
Oh, I love you.
I love you
Thanks.
too. And as we do with every podcast episode, Mac will close out the show.
You've been listening to GSF Podcast, the official podcast of the Gary Sinise Foundation. If you'd like to find out more about what the foundation is up to, or if you'd like to make a donation, please visit GarySiniseFoundation.org. Make sure to tune in next time for more interviews, and thanks for joining us.